one of the things I want you to be aware of, and if you have a picture in your house of maybe one or two generations previous, and you look at those pictures, I think it'll give you a good indication of where we were as a society before the obesity epidemic actually came into its own. And it's this weird silent epidemic because people don't like to talk about overweight or getting fat or being obese because it becomes like this social discomfort. It becomes something that people feel is a very, very private issue. But I want to talk about it as a public health crisis. And she does too. So I think it's important to know that we have lots of doctors that are also dealing with obesity as a public health crisis. And it just makes sense that it doesn't make sense. We have a world now that isn't very different from the world that we lived in 100 years ago or 80 years ago. We still have stress. We still have families. We still have alcoholism. We still have anger. We still have greed. We have all these things that cause problems in the world and have always caused problems in the world for centuries, right? It's why wars start. It's why families break up. It's why friendships break down. All of these things that cause stress. We have people who lose their jobs. We have people who lose loved ones and family members. There's always a time of crisis. And yet, for the first time in history, we have this just explosion of obesity. Our bodies are just swelling up and storing things and holding on to things in a way that's causing us to be really, really unhealthy. And it's cascading into a lot of diseases, especially cardiometabolic diseases, which we talked a lot about on this show. It's leading to early death, lots of heart attacks, other things like diabetes and dementia and Alzheimer's. People used to grow wise, but now they grow into memory issues. And we don't want that. We want the opposite of that. So why is that happening? So in the chapter that we read for this week in 10% Human, she talks about you are what you eat. And I'm not going to go into the chapter other than to say that she talks a lot about fiber and why fiber is important. I'm also going to talk about fiber in today's episode, but I want to take it in a different direction with this chapter because I think a lot of the information that she talks about in this chapter is very data driven. And so she talks about eating fiber first, eating a lot more fiber than you're getting in your diet. And I think that's incredibly important. You're going to find in the next chapter, however, they also talk about having the right microbes. So I think fiber and probiotics go hand in hand. And if you're a member of doTERRA, my recommendation would be the fiber product, and I'm going to talk to you about some other ways to get good fiber from doTERRA, but also the new Restore product, which goes on sale November 1st, but you can get in the collection right now. And I highly recommend that you get on this product now because I feel like it's doing a lot to actually expand our microbiome and restore it. That's why it's called Restore, to the way and the richness that it should be. But let's talk a little bit about stress eating, because for anyone who's had a problem with stress eating, you know that it's really, really hard to control. And usually once you've entered into a period where you've given in and you've started to eat out of stress, I'm going to bring this camera a little bit closer, you see that what's happened is you feel a lot of regret afterwards, right? Like people will say to me, I don't know, I was just so upset and I needed comfort. And I sat down with whatever it was, a big container of chocolate covered almonds. People will talk about, people will often turn to alcohol because of its sugar content, or maybe it's cookies, maybe it's cake, maybe it's ice cream, whatever it is for you. It's not going to be a good thing if that is going to be the way that you're kind of taking and channeling that stress. It can also include things like binge watching a show, or sometimes people will talk to me about video game addiction. Of course, the very, very dark side of this kind of de-stress, looking for dopamine, looking for serotonin, is the pornography addiction that we're seeing in the United States. So I just want you to see that all of this stuff goes hand in hand, and that there is a physiological and biological reason for it. And there's also some really good things that you can do to overcome it. So let's talk about the first one. I'm going to give you some no cost tools, and then I'm going to give you some transfer buying options, things that you're spending your money on that you could actually just take those things out and put new things in without your budget changing whatsoever. And then I'm going to take you up a notch for those of you who are ready to really, go full in, right? That you are ready to commit to this brand new wellness lifestyle, that you want to get over your weight gain or your obesity tract, and you want to be able to overcome this disease. And it is a disease, okay? It is a disease, and it's something that you can tackle and you can handle. 100%. People are doing it every day. So one of the things I used to teach my students was to understand what a problem thermometer is. So a problem thermometer is being able to look at something and gauge how severe the problem is. But one of the great things about the problem thermometer is it teaches all of us that there isn't a problem out there that hasn't been solved by someone at some point in history or is being solved right now. And people are overcoming obesity every single solitary day. Are they doing it the same way every time? No. Are they dealing with their stress in the same way and getting success in the same way? No. So there's lots of ways for you to overcome this stress and manage it better instead of turning to something like stress eating. So the first thing is called Ride the Wave. This is a no-cost tool that anyone can do. And if you ask psychiatrists now or psychologists, what is the number one way that they're seeing people overcome addictions? It is this method called riding the wave. So I think it's worth all of us understanding whether we're using it for ourselves or using it for someone that we love. And it's a really great tool to use with children when you are training them, right? When you're teaching them how to live in a temporal way, right? Temperance is a really important virtue. It's a value that I think if we spent more time thinking about, we could reward ourselves for being more moderate. Most of the time, the path lies in the middle, right? So whether you're coming from an Eastern philosophy or a Western philosophy, the one thing that we know as humans that is always true is that extremes never serve. So let's talk about riding the wave. Let's say, for example, and I don't have anything here because I try to keep temptation out of my view. You have a chocolate bar. I'm just going to say, okay, so we're going to say that my cup of tea is actually your temptation food, whatever it is. Okay. And so you're tired, you've had a really bad day, everybody's driving you crazy, you really are looking for a moment of comfort, and you're going to turn to that thing that has always traditionally given you comfort but isn't serving you. All right. So it has to be those two things that we're overcoming. Firstly, it has to be the common thing that you turn to. And secondly, it's the thing that isn't serving you. That thing that when you're done with it, you say, why did I do that? Okay, so this is how you ride the wave. You take that temptation food and you're going to put it in front of you. Okay, I'm sorry, I have my lipstick all over this glass, but you're going to put it in front of you. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to start counting back from 20. Okay, first time you're going to do it, you're going to say 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, one of the reasons you do the countdown for 20 seconds is that it gives your body time to regulate. You get out of that fight or flight mode. And maybe your fight or flight mode is so high that it's going to take more. So if 20 seconds doesn't make you feel a shift, then start with a higher number, 50, 100, 200, doesn't matter what it is. You have to know that this thing that you must have is always available to you. It is always your choice to have it. No one is taking it away from you. That is part of the way you do this ride the wave. Now, after the countdown, you have a choice. But you have to ask yourself one question. Do I feel that the value I will receive by indulging in the whatever it is, right, is what I really, really want? I'm making a conscious decision. This is the thing that I know that I need right now. And the consequences, even if they're negative, I'm going to accept them. Or can I put this off for 5 minutes? Okay, so I can either drink the tea or I can put it down. Now, obviously, tea is not going to make you obese. So we need to think of what is your thing, right? What is that thing that you have? Is it the chocolate? Is it the alcohol? Is it a cigarette? Whatever that thing is that you're trying to stay away from. And this is your choice, right? You've decided that you want to be an anti-stress eater. Then those are the things that you're going to give yourself 5 minutes, get out that timer on your phone or on your watch, and you're going to count it down. All right. So set your timer and then you're going to wait. Now, in the meantime, because it can be hard to sit and look at something that you really want, I want you to have a distraction. Now, some people say, well, watching television or Netflix or streaming, whatever your show is going to be your best distraction. As long as you set a timer, although that can be an addiction in and of itself, it's not going to be an addiction that's going to lead to obesity. So for this particular moment, I'm going to say, okay, you could either pick up a book and read for 5 minutes. Maybe you can do something with your hand. You could have like a project around the house. I'm going to leave the chocolate. I'm going to leave the cookies, the ice cream, whatever it is. And for that 5 minutes, I'm going to wash the dishes, organize a drawer, pull out my clothes for the next day, write a to-do list of things that I really want to get done in my life, something productive. For those of you who have a spiritual life, this is a perfect time to say a prayer or meditate. For those of you who haven't developed that kind of thing, find an activity, but it's only 5 minutes. You're giving yourself 5 minutes. After the countdown and after the 5 minutes, you're going to go back to that thing and then you're going to make a choice. Am I going to have it or am I going to put it away? Now, you probably, if you're just starting to do this, will say, yep, I want it. And if it's a glass of wine or a bowl of ice cream, whatever, you're going to sit down and eat it. But psychologically and physiologically, you've changed the way you deal with that thing. You don't deal with it impulsively. You deal with it intentionally. And that will start to change the way your physiology works and the way your desire works. So that's called riding the wave. As you practice riding the wave, you're going to elongate the time from the countdown to the time of the decision. So we're going to start out with 20 seconds and a 5-minute break. And then you're going to acknowledge that you rode the wave, that you felt the desire, that you looked at the thing, and that you gave yourself a pause. And then whether you indulged or not, you rode the wave. Okay. And the great thing about this is no one is preventing you from having the thing that you crave, that thing that is part of your comfort belief. Okay. So try that. As we elongate it, we might go from a 20-second countdown and a 5-minute wait to a 50-second countdown and a 10-minute wait. Always have at the ready your distraction or your meditation, your prayer for that space moment. You need something in that time that's not just sitting and staring at your bowl of ice cream. That's not going to work. That's going to be like torture. So we're changing our habits and we're changing our attitudes and we're changing our brain chemistry, and that will begin to help change your physiology. So that's tip number 1. for dealing with that stress eating. Okay, tip number 2 is just to not do it if you have that kind of control right now, and replace the eating with a doing. It could be taking a walk, could be walking stairs, it could be cleaning a cabinet, could be polishing your shoes. Most of the time, it's not going to be something that is going to increase your stress level. So I would not, for example, if you're feeling very stressed about work, the distraction isn't to go back to work and to work more. If you're feeling stressed out because of your kids, then it's not keeping them up later at night, right? It's like your kids need to go to bed. You also need a break. They need a break. Keep the discipline in the house. But when everybody's done and you're staring at a pile of laundry and you really want to eat the bowl of ice cream, then, either ride the wave, or you can say, I'm going to do all the laundry first. And when the laundry's done, I'll revisit the ice cream. That can work sometimes. I really like riding the wave. That's my number one thing. But a lot of experts will tell you get busy is a good way to keep yourself from stress eating. So if you're doing something that you can't actually do while you eat, that's going to be a good thing. And here's why physical activity actually helps with this. It does change your brain chemistry. So you go from feeling stressed out to actually feeling more relaxed when you move your physical body. Moving your physical body gets you out of a headspace that can be very, very destructive. Okay, so that's my tip number 2. Tip number 1 is ride the wave. Tip number 2 is get busy. Tip number 3 is very, very closely related to get busy, but it's get moving. So instead of eating, you're going to replace that eating time with exercise. And whatever that is, to whatever level you're capable, even if you're sitting in a chair, you can do some sort of body movement. Even if you're paralyzed, you can wiggle your ears, you can move your nose, you can move your head. But the idea is physical movement, again, gets you out of the sympathetic and into the parasympathetic, where your brain chemistry is going to change and it's going to start producing dopamine and it's going to help you out. We can also do things that stimulate our vagus nerve, things like splashing cold water on our face, or even going into some area that's cold. You could put your feet in an ice bath. I know it sounds extreme and crazy. It's like, I'd rather eat the ice cream. I understand. Again, my number 1 recommendation is always going to be this method called ride the wave. But if you're someone who's trying to put more exercise into your life, one of the things you can do is actually just put a set of barbells in your kitchen where you go in and go to get that ice cream. You could put a note on your refrigerator that says, or wherever you're going to get that comfort food, that says, before I'm allowed to have my comfort food, I need to spend 2 minutes lifting weights, or 2 minutes doing push-ups or sit-ups or whatever it is. And once you've done that, you can have the comfort food, but you have to give yourself a delay time. There's a great book on fasting. It's called Delay, Don't Deny. And I think this is a philosophy that works really, really well in the weight loss world, because our idea is to become the healthiest body that we were intended to be. And obesity is taking your body and making it abnormal. And that is something that's driven by all kinds of factors. A lot of them are not under your control. And so we need to retrain those things that we are in control of, so that it cascades and starts to change the physiology inside that we can't control, so that our bodies come into its more perfect form. Okay. The next thing I want you to do is actually to eat something healthy before you go to your comfort food. And you have to have that on hand. So whatever it is, and there's this where doTERRA is 100% home run for me. Now we're getting into more costly things, but this is where I'm going to talk to you about transferring things out of your budget. So when it comes to different fiber foods, and fiber, by the way, turns off our desire for sweets and other carbohydrates, which are usually our go-tos that are unhealthy when it comes to stress eating. So what you can do actually is just to go ahead and pick one of these three things. So I'm going to tell you why all these three things are going to be beneficial, because of their fiber content. For example, the dietary fiber in our doTERRA fiber is 9 grams. So this is choice number one. Choice number two is the doTERRA greens, and the fiber content in the doTERRA greens is 3 grams. So it may sound like it's not that high, but it still has 3 grams of fiber and it will do the trick. But this is 9 grams. So you're getting much more in here. Now, can you take these two together for a combination of 12 grams of fiber? Yes, you absolutely can. But here's something that you may not know that actually will help you in 2 different ways. This is called doTERRA protein. And doTERRA protein has 7 grams of fiber, but it also has 21 grams of protein. And the reason this is so helpful is that protein also reduces cravings and also helps to ground you so that you don't feel stress. So one of the things that you can do, and again, remember we've talked about our no cost tools first. Now we're getting into some cost tools, but I want you to look at the cost of these 3 products and decide where in your budget you can substitute out, even if it's something really healthy that you're spending money on, replace it with one of these things. Because of the concentration of the fiber, and in this case, the protein, and because of the ease of which it is to use it and its shelf life, you don't have to worry about, look, I love fresh fruits and vegetables, and yes, they're high in fiber. But for example, a medium apple is 5 grams of fiber. You're getting 9 grams of fiber in this. So you would have to eat 2 apples as opposed to drinking this, which probably would take you seconds, if, under a minute. I don't know about you, but for me to eat an apple or 2 apples, that's a 15, 20-minute commitment, which is great. And maybe after you did that, you wouldn't feel like you needed to eat the ice cream or the chips or the chocolate or whatever is your downfall in stress eating. But I like the convenience of this. I like the concentration of the fiber in this. And I like the fact that this can stay in my cupboard for a really long time. This expires in 2025. So we're in 2023. It's a 2-year shelf life. That apple is not going to last that long. And you're going to have to change things up seasonally. Now, we can talk about diet in another show, but I think it's really important when we're talking about stress eating is to turn off that signal of desire. And fiber will turn off the signal of desire, because once the fiber hits your gut, it starts to work with the access between your gut and your brain. And it tells your brain, oh, I have all this wonderful food for my microbiome. Let's get busy. Now, when your microbiome, all right, bacteria has something to eat like fiber, something is produced called a postbiotic. So these postbiotics are these super molecules that happen once the probiotic eats the prebiotic, which is what a fiber is. And once those are in your body, they're like a little army that creates different signals, including dopamine, which makes you feel happy, and serotonin, which makes you feel confident. So the more fiber you eat, not only will you become thinner and healthier. If you're already thin, it's okay. You should still eat a lot of fiber because it's going to make you healthier and maintain your health. But the more important thing for those of you who are stress eaters and or falling into obesity or are overweight is that the fiber itself will start to turn off that need for comfort. All right. If you are depressed, if you are anxious, or you are feeling low, go grab some fiber. And the easiest way to do it, I feel, is in a powdered form. It's really hard when you're not feeling up to it and you really like to sit down and eat a bag of chips or eat a bowl of ice cream, to say to yourself, I'm going to cut up some fruit and put it in a bowl, or I'm going to make a vegetable salad. It's just not happening. If it were happening, you wouldn't have the problem with the stress eating. So let's be honest with ourselves and understand that when you have something that's an easy go-to, it's going to be much, much more successful for you. So doTERRA fiber is my number one pick for that. Again, shelf life, efficacy, and concentration. Those are the three big pluses for the doTERRA fiber. You can also, if you want to add a super boost, add a scoop of greens, and even more, go and get that protein. After the show, let me tell you, I'm going to make one of these combo shakes. I don't love my greens with my protein. That's one of my things. I'll mix greens and fiber. That tastes good to me. But the creaminess of the vanilla, I like as a standalone. My favorite way to make it is with coconut milk, but you can make it with anything you want. And here's a great way to feed your microbiome when you're drinking a protein shake from doTERRA. Add as many spices as you can, because the more spices you add, you can make it into like a chai. That's going to also give diversity to your microbiome, and they like to eat that as well. Our goal is to get these postbiotics going. Those postbiotics are the things that change our brain chemistry, but they don't happen without fiber. So if you're eating a low fiber or almost even a no fiber diet, you're starving your body of what it needs to turn off that signaling, that craving that you need. So just to review one more time, my first no-cost tool is ride the wave, then get busy, then exercise, then go to fiber. All right, an essential oil trick to help you with craving is clove oil. If you take clove oil and you put a drop on your tongue, it will not only kill the taste for almost anything that you'd want in the world of comfort foods, but the clove oil is also good for your gut microbiome. There's some really good studies about the microbiome and its health and clove oil. So two things are happening. You're killing the taste in the mouth of like all of that. It's going to change the way everything tastes once you put clove in your mouth. So that's kind of a good thing, because it's like, well, taste is part of what you're trying to get out of when it comes to comfort food. But the second thing is, once that clove oil is in your body, it's going into your gut and it's signaling to the gut to produce those postbiotics. And when those postbiotics are being produced, again, it's going to signal the gut brain axis, and you're going to get a really, really good, almost joyful, euphoric feeling. And it's really good for your immune system. So in the winter months, just one drop of clove under your tongue whenever. I will warn you, for those of you who are watching and you're already well on your way to super health, the problem is clove oil can actually shut down your appetite. So be careful if you're someone who eats too little or needs to be eating more. This may be something that actually works against you. So put that in a capsule, so you're not getting the coating of the taste of the clove oil in your mouth, but you're getting the benefit of the clove oil in your gut microbiome. All right. So for those of you trying to lose weight, you want to drop under your tongue. For those of you who are at an ideal weight, or you're maybe on the too thin side, put a drop in a capsule and take it internally. Or you can actually take one of our On Guard products, one of the On Guard beadlets, for example, which is also already pre-encapsulated. You don't have to do any of the work. All right. So I think we've come to the end of all of my recommendations for keeping yourself from being a stress eater and helping you overcome this pandemic of obesity that's facing America. Do you know someone who's suffering from obesity, who can't lose weight, who diets all the time, who is a stress eater and needs a tip or a tool? Please share this episode with them so that we can help everyone together become more healthy. I will see you next week. We are going on with our book, 10% Human. I want you to read the chapter from the very first breath, which is chapter 7. Bye-bye.